Captain Jeho Kong stared at the screen in disbelief. The signal had come from nowhere, piercing through Earth's communication systems like a knife through paper. Around him, the control room of Luna Station buzzed with confused voices and beeping machines. "Sir, you need to see this," Lieutenant Yuna Song said, her fingers dancing across her console. "The signal is definitely not from any human source." Jeho moved closer, his heart beating faster. Humanity had been alone in the stars for 200 years. When Earth had first reached out to the galaxy, the response had been swift and cruel. The aliens had called humans dangerous. They had called Earth a death world. They had put up warning beacons around the solar system and told humanity to stay away from the rest of the galaxy now. After all these years of silence, someone was calling. "Can you translate it?" Jeho asked. Yuna shook her head. "Not yet. But I've sent it to Commander Hannah Park. If anyone can figure it out, she can." Hannah Park was the best linguist on Earth. She had spent her whole life studying the few alien transmissions humanity had managed to record. While other children played with toys, young Hannah had listened to alien voices and dreamed of the stars. 3 hours later, Jeho stood in Admiral Taiyang Choi's office. The old admiral looked tired. Deep lines marked his face, and his hair had gone completely white. Taiyang had been a young officer during First Contact. He had watched the aliens reject humanity with disgust. "Tell me what we know," Taiyang said. Hannah Park stepped forward, a tablet in her hands. She looked excited and frightened at the same time. "Admiral, the message is from something called the Galactic Council. It's a group of 47 different alien species." "And what do they want?" Taiyang asked. Hannah took a deep breath. "They're asking for help. They're being attacked by something called the Verdok Swarm. According to the message, this swarm has already destroyed 12 different civilizations. The Council has tried everything, but nothing works. They're losing." Jeho frowned. "Why come to us?" "They made it very clear they didn't want anything to do with humanity." Hannah's voice became quiet. "The message is strange, sir. Part of it says we are dying. Another part says you are monsters. And then it says, 'Please help.'" The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens were so desperate that they were willing to ask the monsters for help. Taiyang stood and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, Earth hung in the darkness like a blue jewel. "They called us monsters because we come from a death world. Our planet has high gravity. Our air would poison most of them. Our animals kill to survive. Even our plants fight each other for sunlight." He turned back to face them. "And they were afraid of us because humans know how to fight. We've had wars for thousands of years. So what do we do?" Jeho asked. Taiyang was quiet for a long moment. "We help them. Not because they deserve it. Not because they were kind to us. But because it's the right thing to do." He looked at Jeho. "Captain, you'll lead our response team. Take 5 of our best warships." Jeho felt his stomach tighten. 5 ships against something that had destroyed 12 civilizations. It seemed impossible, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." Over the next 2 weeks, Earth prepared. News of the alien message spread quickly. People had mixed feelings. Some were angry, remembering the rejection. Others were excited about finally joining the galaxy. Many were simply afraid. Jeho assembled his crew. Besides Yuna, he brought Lieutenant Minho Bei, a tactical genius who could see patterns in chaos. There was also Sergeant Ji Wuhan, a Marine who had fought in the border wars and never lost a battle, and Dong Yun Lee, an engineer who could fix anything or build weapons from spare parts. When the 5 Earth ships prepared to leave, millions of people watched. The ships were not beautiful like in old movies. They were built for war, covered in armor and weapons. Humanity had learned long ago that space was not safe or friendly. Hannah Park traveled on Jeho's ship, the Valiant. As they passed beyond the moon, she stood at a window and looked back at Earth. "Do you think we'll come back?" she asked quietly. Jeho stood beside her. "I don't know. But if we don't, at least we tried to be better than what they think we are." The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Hannah worked constantly to learn more alien languages from the transmission. Minho studied everything they knew about the swarm. Giwu trained her marines, preparing them for combat against an unknown enemy. Dong Yun checked and rechecked every weapon system. When they finally arrived at Quellan Prime, the Council's capital world, everyone fell silent. The planet was beautiful, covered in soft purple forests and calm blue oceans. Around it floated hundreds of ships, each one different, representing the many species of the Council. "They're hailing us," Yuna reported. "Open a channel," Jiho ordered. An alien face appeared on the screen. It had 4 eyes and skin like smooth stone. "Human vessels. This is High Chancellor Vestero of the Galactic Council. We ... We did not think you would come." Jiho stood straight. "We received your message. We're here to help." Vestaro's face showed something that might have been relief or fear. "Then please, dock at Station 7. We have much to discuss. And humans. Thank you. Even if you are monsters, you are the monsters we need." As the transmission ended, Jiho looked at his crew. They had traveled across the galaxy to help people who feared them. They were about to face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. And they were doing it because someone had asked for help. Sometimes, being a monster meant being the only one brave enough to fight. The council chamber was massive. Lieutenant Yuna Song had never seen anything so large. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of aliens filled the curved seats, representing species from across the galaxy. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with metal. Yuna walked forward with the human delegation. She had been chosen to speak first because of her calm nature. Behind her, Captain Jiho and the others followed in their dark blue uniforms. Around them, aliens whispered and moved away. Some covered their faces. Others simply stared with fear in their many different kinds of eyes. "They're scared of us," Yuna whispered to Jiho. "Let them be scared," Minho said from behind. "Fear means respect. Fear means they don't trust us," Yuna corrected. High Chancellor Vestaro stood on a platform in the center of the chamber. His 4 eyes watched the humans carefully. "Members of the Council," he said, his voice echoing through the vast space. "The humans have arrived. I know many of you voted against calling them. I know you think this is dangerous. But we are out of options." A tall alien with skin like tree bark stood up. "They come from a Class 12 death world. Their planet should be forbidden." Another alien, this one covered in blue scales, spoke next. "Humans wage war against their own kind. They have weapons designed only to kill. They are violent by nature." Vestaro raised one hand. "And that is exactly why we need them. The swarm does not listen to diplomacy. They do not stop when we ask. They only understand force, and we do not." Yuna stepped forward, her heart pounding. "May I speak?" The chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes turned to her. "We know what you think of us," Yuna said, her voice steady. "You think we're monsters because we know how to fight? Because our world taught us to be strong or die. But we're also here because you asked for help. We traveled across the galaxy for people who fear us. Doesn't that tell you something about who we really are?" An alien with wings made of light spoke softly. Pretty words. But words do not stop the swarm. Vestaro touched a control, and the lights dimmed. A hologram appeared above them, showing a planet covered in green forests and blue water. "This is Tala 7. It had a population of 8 billion. Watch, the hologram changed. Black shapes appeared in space around the planet like a dark cloud. They fell onto the world like rain. Within minutes, the green forests turned brown. The oceans became still. The lights of cities went dark. 3 hours, Vestaro said quietly. That's how long it took the swarm to consume all life on Tala 7. They ate everything. The plants. The animals. The people. They left nothing but dust. Yuna felt sick. Around her, even the veteran soldiers looked shaken. 12 civilizations, Vestaro continued. Hundreds of billions of lives. Gone. We tried to fight them, but our weapons barely hurt them. We tried to run, but they follow. We tried to hide, but they find us. Dong-Yun Lee, the engineer, spoke up. Show us your weapons. An hour later, Dong-Yun stood in a council weapons facility. looking at what the aliens called their military equipment. He picked up one device and shook his head. This is a crowd control tool. It makes people confused and scared so they run away, as the alien technician said proudly. Very effective. Completely non-lethal. Everything here is non-lethal, Dongyun said, looking around at the various devices. You don't have anything that actually kills? The technician looked confused. Why would we? Violence causes psychological damage to both the victim and the one who commits it. Our species would suffer mental breakdowns if we had to kill. Dongyun turned to Jiho. Captain, they're not equipped for war. They literally can't fight. Their biology won't let them.
What?
In another room, Minho studied tactical maps with council military leaders. He pointed to various defensive positions. Why didn't you make a stand here? This choke point could hold off a much larger force. Council General, a being made of crystalline structures, responded. We tried, but when the swarm attacked, our soldiers couldn't handle it. Many died, yes, but the ones who survived had to watch their friends die. It broke them. They couldn't fight anymore. Some took their own lives. Others lost their minds. Minho stared. All of them? Violence damages us in ways you cannot understand, the general said. We evolved on peaceful worlds. We never had predators. We never had wars. The very act of fighting goes against everything in our biology. Minho reported back to Jiho. Sir, this is worse than we thought. They're not just losing. They literally cannot fight. Every battle they try causes their soldiers to break down mentally. The swarm is attacking people who can't defend themselves. That evening, the human team met privately. They sat in a small room provided by the council, finally alone after a long day of meetings. They need us, Giwu said. The Marine sergeant had been quiet all day, but now she spoke firmly. These people are like children facing a wolf pack. They don't know how to fight. They don't want to fight. But something is eating them alive. Can we even win? Yuna asked. 5 human ships against something that destroyed 12 civilizations? No, Minho said bluntly. We can't win. Not alone. But we can buy time. We can teach them. We can show them how to survive. Hannah, who had been studying swarm data all day, spoke up. There's something else. The council never tried to communicate with the swarm, they just ran. Maybe the swarm can be reasoned with. Maybe they're just monsters, Dongun said. Like us? Jiho asked quietly. The room fell silent. A sudden alarm shattered the quiet. Red lights flashed. Yuna checked her tablet and her face went pale. The swarm there, attacking a colony world. Right now. Only 6 hours from here. Everyone looked at Jiho. The captain stood slowly. Get everyone to the ships. We're going. The council hasn't approved military action, Yuna warned. Jiho smiled grimly. Then we'll apologize later. People are dying now. As the human ships launched from the station, Vistara watched from the council chamber. Other aliens stood with him, fear and hope mixed on their many different faces. They're going to fight, one alien whispered. They're going to die, another said. Vestro simply watched. Maybe, but at least they're not running. For the first time in years, someone is flying toward the swarm instead of away from it. In the Valiant's command center, Jiho studied the tactical display. The colony world showed on the screen already partially darkened as the swarm consumed it. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. All ships report ready, Yuna announced. Course plotted, the navigator said. We'll arrive in 5 hours. Jiho nodded. Behind him, Giwu was already suiting up her marines in combat armor. Dongyun was loading weapons that the aliens thought were too cruel to exist. Minho was planning attack patterns that would horrify the peaceful council. They were everything the galaxy. Feared, violent, dangerous, born from a world that killed the weak and made the strong even stronger. But they were also everything the galaxy needed. The colony world of Brescian fulfilled the view screen. Half the planet was already dark. The swarm covered the surface like a living blanket, black and writhing. Jiho watched as another city went silent, its lights flickering out like dying stars. 2 million colonists still alive, Yuna reported, her voice tight. But the swarm is spreading fast. Maybe 2 hours before they're all gone. Jiho leaned forward in his command chair. Around him, the bridge crew worked quickly and quietly. They had trained for war their whole lives, but this was different. This enemy was not human. It was not even like anything humans had fought before. Minho, what do we know? Jiho asked. Lieutenant Minho Bay brought up tactical displays. The swarm moves like insects, but each piece seems connected to the others. The council records show they can't be poisoned or frozen or burned. Conventional weapons don't work because there are just too many of them. Kill 1,000 and 10,000 more appear. How do we fight them? Minho smiled coldly. We do what the council never tried. We get close. Ho understood immediately. The aliens had tried to fight from far away, using their gentle weapons at safe distances. But humans had learned something important in thousands of years of war. Sometimes you had to get your hands dirty. All ships, Jiho announced on the fleet channel. We're going in close. Minho has marked targets. Hit them hard and fast. The 5 human warships dove toward the planet. The swarm noticed. The black mass on the surface began to move, rising up like a wave. Thousands of individual creatures lifted into the sky, forming dark clouds that rushed toward the human fleet. Here they come, Yuna said. The first wave hit the Valiant's shields. The creatures slammed against the energy barrier, trying to tear through. Up close, Jiho could finally see what they looked like. They had too many legs and too many eyes. Their mouths were filled with teeth that never stopped moving. They made sounds that hurt to hear, like screaming and grinding metal mixed together. Shields holding at 80%, Yuna reported. Fire all weapons, Jiho ordered. The Valiant's guns opened up. Missiles streaked out, each one carrying explosives that the Council had banned as too cruel. Energy beams cut through space, hot enough to melt steel. The weapons humans had built to fight each other now turned against an alien threat. The swarm died by thousands. But for every one that died, more came. It's not enough, Minho said, watching the tactical display. We're killing them, but there are too many. We need to find the source. Hannah Park, who had been studying the swarm patterns, suddenly spoke up. There, look at the movement patterns. They're all connected to something. See how they swirl around that spot on the surface? Minho enhanced the image. Deep in the darkened area of the planet, something large pulsed. It looked like a heart made of shadows, beating slowly. That's it, Minho said. That's what's controlling them. Or at least coordinating them. Jiho made his decision quickly. Juwoo, take your Marines. We're going down there. Sergeant Ji Wuhan had been waiting for this order. She keyed her radio. Marines, gear up. We're doing a drop. 30 human Marines gathered in the drop bay. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could punch through concrete. Each one had trained for years, learning how to fight in any environment. Against any enemy, Giwu checked her rifle one last time. Beside her, a young Marine named Hyan looked nervous. Sergeant, what if the Council's right? What if fighting makes us no better than the swarm? Jiwoo looked at him. The difference is choice. The swarm only destroys. We can choose to protect. Right now, 2 million people down there need us to make that choice. The drop pods launched, screaming down through the atmosphere. Inside her pod, Giwu felt the heat and pressure. This was what humans did. They flew into danger while others ran away. Maybe that did make them monsters. But sometimes, the galaxy needed monsters. The pods crashed into the surface near the pulsing mass. The doors blew open, and the Marines charged out into hell. The swarm covered everything. The ground moved with creatures. The air was thick with flying things. The sound was overwhelming, like standing inside a screaming engine. Form up, Jiwoo shouted. Stay together. The Marines moved as one unit, their training taking over. They fired in controlled bursts, making every shot count. The swarm crashed against them like waves against rocks. But the humans held. Giwu led them forward, step by step, toward the pulsing mass. Creatures died under their guns. The Marine's armor got scratched and dented, but it held. One Marine went down, pulled under by a dozen creatures. 2 others grabbed him and pulled him back, still firing with one hand. Ji-woo called out. The pulsing mass was huge up close, at least 20 meters across. It looked organic but also wrong, like someone had made life from nightmare and shadow. Around it, the swarm protected it desperately. Dong-yoon, you seeing this? Ji-woo asked over her radio. Back on the Valiant, engineer Dong-yoon Lee studied the video feed from Ji-woo's helmet camera. Yeah, I see it. Plant the charges exactly where I mark them. Gi-woo followed Dong-yoon's instructions, placing explosive charges at specific points around the mass. The swarm tried to stop her, but her Marines kept them back, forming a defensive ring. Charges set, Ji-woo reported. Clear, Dong-yoon said. 300 meters minimum. The Marines ran, fighting their way back. Behind them, the swarm sensed something wrong. The creatures began to swarm even more frantically around the pulsing mass, trying to protect it. Everyone clear? Gu asked.
Clear?
Came the responses. Dong-yoon, do it. The charges exploded. But these were not normal explosives. Dong-yoon had modified them with some of the swarm's own organic material, creating something new. The explosion was not just fire and force. It sent out a pulse that disrupted the connection between the swarm creatures. The effect was immediate. The creatures stopped moving as one. They became confused, attacking each other, flying in random directions. The organized wave became chaos. It's working. Minho shouted from the Valiant, "The swarm is breaking apart." Above the planet, the 5 human ships pressed their advantage. They fired into the confused mass, pushing them back. Slowly, the black clouds began to retreat, pulling away from the planet. Within an hour, the swarm was gone. They had fled into space, leaving behind the partially consumed world. Ji-ho stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display. Around Brescian, 800,000 colonists had survived. Not all of them, not even most of them. But 800,000 people who would have died were still alive. Council ships approaching, Yuna reported. They're hailing us. Bestaro's face appeared on screen. His 4 eyes were wide with something that might have been shock. You fought them, hand to hand, on the ground, and you won. We did what needed to be done, Ji-ho said simply. But the cost, Vestaro whispered. I saw your casualty reports. 7 Marines injured. 2 seriously. How can you accept such losses? Ji-ho was quiet for a moment. Because the alternative was 800,000 dead colonists. That math is easy for us. Vestaro seemed to struggle with this concept. We could never do what you just did. Our people would break. The violence alone would destroy them mentally. Then it's good we came, Ji-ho said. After the transmission ended, Hana approached Ji-ho. She had been analyzing the swarm data from the battle. Captain, I found something. When we disrupted that mass, I picked up something on the communications bands. It wasn't random. It was structured. Like language. You mean they were talking? Or screaming, Hana said quietly. Either way, they're not just mindless. There's intelligence there. Ji-ho looked back at the view screen, where the dark shape of the swarm was still visible in the distance, retreating. Then maybe we can find a way to stop this without killing them all. Maybe, Hana agreed. But first, we need to learn their language. And that might be harder than fighting them. In the medical bay, Ji-woo sat with her injured Marines. They were tired and hurt, but alive. One of them, the young Marine Hein, looked up at her. Sergeant, are we the bad guys? The council thinks we are. Ji-woo thought about the question. I don't know. But today, we saved 800,000 people. Let the council call us whatever they want. We know what we are. We're the ones who show up when everyone else runs away. 8 months had passed since the battle at Brescian 4. The human fleet had grown from 5 ships to 50. Earth had sent reinforcements, supplies, and thousands of volunteers who wanted to help. Across the galaxy, humanity was fighting the swarm at a dozen different fronts, but the cost was terrible. Lieutenant Minho Bay stood in the war room. looking at casualty reports. 40,000 human soldiers dead. Another 60,000 wounded. The numbers kept growing. We're winning, Minho said to Captain Jiho, but we're bleeding for every victory. Jiho looked older now. The war had aged him. How long until the big offensive? 3 days. We've located the swarm's main breeding nexus. If we destroy it, we might end this war, my Jiho repeated. Minho nodded. It's our best chance, but it will cost us. My projections show at least 20,000 casualties, maybe more. Jiho closed his eyes. 20,000 lives. 20,000 families who would never see their loved ones again. But if they did nothing, how many billions of aliens would die? Proceed with the plan, Jiho ordered. The council chamber erupted in chaos when they heard about the offensive. Thousands of alien voices spoke at once, some in anger, some in fear. 20,000 casualties. One alien shouted, "That's genocide." Vestaro tried to calm them. It's the cost of war. The humans understand this, but we don't. Another alien cried, "We never wanted this kind of violence. We asked for help, not mass slaughter." Lieutenant Unisong stood before the council, trying to explain. We're not killing our soldiers carelessly, but war has costs. If we don't take this chance, millions more will die, both yours and ours. A council member with glowing tentacles spoke softly. Perhaps the cost is too high. Perhaps we should surrender to the swarm. At least then, the dying would be quick. Yuna felt anger rise in her chest. You want to quit? After everything? After 40,000 humans have died protecting you. We never asked for them to die. The alien shot back. We asked for help, not for you to wage a brutal war in our name. The argument went on for hours. Yuna returned to the human ships exhausted and frustrated. Meanwhile, Commander Hannah Park had made a breakthrough. She had been working for months to decode the swarm's communications. Finally, she had succeeded. They're not evil, Hannah told Jiho in his private office. They're desperate. Jiho looked up from his reports. Explain. Hannah brought up a holographic display. It showed complex patterns of sound and light. This is their language. I've been translating their communications during our battles. Jiho, they're starving. Their home dimension is dying. They came here looking for food, for energy, for any way to survive. So they're eating entire civilizations to survive. Yes, but they don't see it as evil. They see it as necessary. Like how we eat animals on Earth. They don't understand that the beings they're consuming are intelligent. Jiho sat back in his chair. Can you talk to them? I think so. But Jiho, if I'm right, then this whole war might be a misunderstanding. A tragic, horrible misunderstanding. Before Jiho could respond, an alarm sounded. The swarm was attacking another world. The battle was fierce. Human ships fought alongside council vessels, driving back the swarm. But this time, something different happened. Hannah broadcast a message on the frequencies she had identified as the swarm's language. The effect was immediate. Some of the swarm creatures stopped attacking. They seemed confused. Then, slowly, they began to respond. They're answering, Hannah said excitedly. I'm recording everything. The battle ended with the swarm retreating. But this time, they left behind something new. A single creature, larger than the others, that did not attack. It simply waited. Hannah insisted on meeting it. Against everyone's advice, she took a small shuttle down to the planet's surface. With Ji-Woo and a team of Marines for protection, the creature was massive up close, easily 10 meters tall. It had dozens of eyes and a mouth that could swallow a person whole, but it did not attack. Instead, it made sounds. Hannah listened carefully, her translation device working frantically. Slowly, she began to understand. They didn't know, she whispered. They didn't know we were intelligent. They thought we were just ... food, like plants or simple animals. And now? Gi-Woo asked, her rifle still raised. Now they know, and they're asking for help. The news shocked everyone. Hannah presented her findings to both the human fleet and the Galactic Council. The swarm isn't evil, Hannah explained. They're refugees. Their dimension is collapsing. They came here desperately looking for any source of energy. But they operate on a completely different understanding of consciousness. They didn't recognize other species as thinking beings until I spoke their language. This changes nothing. A council member shouted. They've killed billions. And we've killed millions of them, Hannah countered. When does the cycle of death end? Admiral Taeyang Choi had arrived from Earth with more reinforcements. The old admiral stood before the council with a grim expression. Commander Park is right. We have a choice now. We can continue this war and exterminate the swarm completely. Or we can try something different. What are you suggesting? Vestaro asked. Negotiation, Taeyang said. Find the swarm empty worlds where they can feed without killing intelligent life. Help them adapt to this universe. End this war without more death. The council erupted again. Half the members supported the idea. The other half demanded the swarm's complete destruction. They killed our families. One alien screamed, and if we exterminate them, we're no better, Hannah argued. The council voted. The result was shocking. 60% voted to destroy the swarm completely. They wanted genocide. Jiho stood before the council with his senior officers. Then we withdraw, he said quietly. Vestaro looked shocked. What? You heard me? Humanity will not participate in genocide. We came here to protect life, not to exterminate it. If you want the swarm dead, you'll have to do it yourselves. But you can't, an alien cried. Without human forces, we'll lose. Then maybe you should reconsider your decision, Admiral Taeyang said coldly. You called us monsters when you needed us. Fine, but we won't be your monsters for this. The council chamber fell silent. The reality was clear. Without human military support, the council could not defeat the swarm. But with human help, they could destroy the swarm completely. They had to choose between mercy and revenge. As the humans prepared to leave, a group of younger council members approached Yuna. They were species that had not lost as much in the war. Their worlds were still intact. We support you, one of them said. This endless killing has to stop. We'll vote again. We'll change the council's mind. Yuna felt hope for the first time in months. Will you succeed? We have to try. You humans showed us that sometimes the strongest choice is not violence, but mercy. We were wrong about you. You're not monsters. You're just willing to do what's necessary and also willing to show kindness when you have the power to destroy. That's something we need to learn. Over the next 3 days, the council debated furiously. Some species threatened to leave the council entirely if the swarm was not destroyed. Others threatened to leave if the genocide went forward. Finally, a new vote was called. This time, it was different. 55% voted to try negotiation first. If it failed, they could still choose war. But they would try for peace. Jiho received the news in his cabin. Beside him, Hannah smiled with relief. We did it. We actually did it. Maybe, Jiho said. Now comes the hard part. We have to actually talk to them, and hope they want peace too. Outside the window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere in that darkness, the swarm waited. They had been called monsters. They had called the council food. And humans stood in between, trying to prove that maybe, just maybe, everyone could be more than what others thought they were. The dimensional breach looked like a wound in space itself. Reality twisted and folded at its edges, showing glimpses of something beyond, something wrong. This was where the swarm had first entered the galaxy, tearing through from their dying dimension into this one. Captain Jiho Kong stood on the bridge of the Valiant, staring at the breach on the view screen. Around it, the combined fleet waited. Human warships, council vessels, and even a few brave swarm bioships that had agreed to help with the negotiation. Are we really doing this? Minho asked quietly. Yes, Jiho said. We're going in there to talk with their queen mind. It's the only way to end this. Hannah stood nearby, holding a tablet filled with translation programs. She had spent weeks perfecting communication with the swarm. Now everything depended on whether she could make them understand. The volunteer team is ready, Sergeant Jiwoo reported. She would be going with them, along with a small group of Marines. Not to fight, but to protect. Yuna checked the communication systems one last time. We'll have about 30 minutes of stable connection once you're through the breach. After that, the dimensional interference gets too strong. Admiral Taiyang appeared on the communication screen from his flagship. Captain Kong, this is the most important mission in human history. Maybe in galactic history. Good luck. Thank you, sir, Jiho said. The small diplomatic ship, carrying Jiho Hanajiwu, and 10 others, detached from the Valiant. It was not a warship. It carried no weapons beyond personal sidearms. It was painted white, the universal color of peace among the Council species. As they approached the breach, reality began to feel strange. Colors shifted wrong. Sounds echoed before they were made. Hannah felt sick, but she forced herself to focus. Entering the breach, the pilot announced, the universe twisted. On the other side, everything was different. The space was darker. The stars were dying. They could see the swarm's home dimension, and it was horrible. Entire worlds were drained of energy, floating as dead husks. The stars themselves were going out one by one. No wonder they're desperate, Jiho whispered. Their entire universe is ending. Ahead of them, something massive moved in the darkness. The Swarm Queen mind was enormous, larger than any ship, larger than many cities. She was made of the same black material as the smaller swarm creatures. But she glowed with a dim, sad light. Hannah stepped forward to the communication panel. I'm starting the translation protocol. She began to speak, using the language she had learned. The words were strange, made of sounds and light pulses, and even quantum fluctuations that human throats could not make alone. Her equipment helped, broadcasting the full message. The Queen Mind responded. At first it was just noise. Then, slowly, patterns emerged. Hannah's equipment translated it into words. Why have the food beings come here? Hannah took a breath. We are not food. We are intelligent life, like you. We think, feel. We love and fear and hope. Just like you, there was a long pause. Then the Queen Mind spoke again. We did not know. The beings we consumed, they think, yes, they have families, children, dreams. When you consume them, you end all of that. Another pause, longer this time. We have caused great pain, but we are also in pain. Our home dies. Our children starve. What would you have us do? Let all of my kind die? Hannah looked at Jiho. This was the moment. Either they found a solution, or the war would continue forever. We can help you, Hannah said. But you must stop consuming intelligent life. There are other sources of energy. Empty worlds. Uninhabited systems. We can show you how to survive without killing. And in return, the Queen Mind asked, peace. An end to this war. A chance for both our kinds to survive. The Queen Mind was quiet for a long time. Around them, smaller swarm creatures floated in the dark, waiting. Jiho noticed that some of them looked damaged, weak. They really were starving. Finally, the Queen Mind spoke. Why do the violent ones offer mercy? The peaceful beings wanted to destroy us completely. But you, who come from the death world, who know war better than any, you offer us life? Why? Hannah smiled sadly. Because we know what it's like to be called monsters. We know what it's like to be feared. And we learned that being strong means choosing when not to use that strength. Violence is easy. Mercy is hard. The Queen Mind moved closer. Giwu and her Marines tensed, but did not raise their weapons. The enormous being studied the small human ship with countless eyes. We accept, the Queen Mind finally said. But we need help now. Our young are dying. Please. Hannah looked at Jiho. We need to get them through to the other side. There are 3 uninhabited solar systems we identified. They're rich in energy, but have no life. The swarm can feed there. Jiho keyed the communication to the fleet. Dong-Yun, this is the captain. We need the dimensional stabilizer now. Engineer Dong-Yun Lee had been working on the stabilizer for weeks. It was a device built from both human technology and swarm biotechnology, a hybrid of 2 different kinds of science. It could widen the breach and make it stable enough for a mass exodus. Deploying now, Dong Yun reported. The stabilizer activated. The breach began to grow, becoming wider and more stable. On the other side, the combined fleet waited. Queen Mind, Hannah said. Lead your people through. We will guide you to the new worlds. The swarm began to move. Billions of creatures, from the smallest to the largest, flowed through the breach. The fleet formed a protective corridor, guiding them toward the designated systems. Vestaro watched from the council flagship. Beside him, other council members observed in silence. They were watching the beings that had killed their people, that had destroyed their worlds, flee to safety under human protection. I do not understand them, one alien said. The humans could destroy the swarm now. They are vulnerable. Why do they protect them instead? Vestaro was quiet for a moment. Because they are not the monsters we thought they were. Or perhaps they are monsters who chose to be something better. The migration took hours. When it was finally complete, the Queen Mind sent one final message. We will never forget this. The violent ones showed mercy. The feared ones showed kindness. If ever you need help, the swarm will answer. Then the breach closed, sealed by Dong Yun's technology. The threat was over. Back on the Valiant, the crew gathered to watch the news broadcasts. Across the galaxy, people learned what had happened. The reactions were mixed. Some species praised humanity. Others said humans were fools to let the swarm survive. But everyone agreed on one thing. The war was over. Giho sat in his cabin, looking at the casualty reports one last time. 150,000 human soldiers had died in the war. But trillions of alien lives had been saved. And billions of swarm creatures had been given a chance to survive without killing. Hannah entered the cabin. The council voted. They're offering humanity full membership. No more quarantine. No more calling us Deathworlders. We're officially part of the galaxy now. It's the same cost as always. We showed them who we really are. Both the violence and the mercy, the monster and the protector. They're learning that those things can exist in the same being. 5 years later, a new crisis emerged in a distant sector. A plague was killing millions, and the Council's medical science could not stop it. They debated for months, uncertain what to do. Then Earth received a message from 100 different species. The message was simple. We need the Deathworlders again. But this time, the message was different. It was not sent in desperation or fear. It was sent with hope and trust. Lieutenant Yuna Song, now a captain herself, read the message and smiled. She keyed the response. We're coming. Not as monsters. Not as warriors. But as friends? Tell us what you need. The response came quickly. Just be yourselves. That's enough. Across Earth, new ships were prepared. Not warships this time, but medical vessels and research ships. Humanity was going back to the stars, but this time to heal instead of fight. In a lecture hall on Earth, old Admiral Tai Yang spoke to new recruits. Many people ask me if we should be proud of what we did during the Swarm War. They ask if saving the Swarm was right or wrong. They ask if we were heroes or fools. He paused, looking at the young faces before him. The truth is, we were all of those things. We were violent when we needed to be. We were merciful when we could be. We made hard choices with no good answers. And in the end, we chose life over death, even when death was easier. But sir, one recruit asked, what if they call us monsters again? Taiyang smiled. Then we'll show them that monsters are not defined by their nature, but by their choices. We came from a death world. We know violence. We understand war. But we also understand something more important. We understand that true strength is not about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when not to hit at all. That, he continued, is what makes us human. Not our violence. Not our mercy, but our ability to choose between them. The galaxy called us monsters. We proved them wrong. Not by changing who we are, but by showing them that even monsters can be more than what others think. Outside, the window ships lifted toward the stars. Humanity was going out into the galaxy again. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners in the great work of keeping the universe alive, and somewhere in distant space, the Swarm Queen mind felt the ripples through her connection to her children. She sent a message across the dimensions, a simple thought that needed no translation. Thank you.